Take-Two, the parent company of Rockstar Games, filed a patent which contains a lot of info about the interiors which are going to be in GTA 6. The procedural generation of interiors hints at a level of detail and variability that we haven't seen before. It looks like in the upcoming game, when we'll be walking into a building in the heart of Vice City, every room, every hallway, and every piece of furniture will be unique. The technology promises an end to the repetitive interiors that have pulled us out of immersion in past titles. Let's start with the background that they provided. Computer games often comprise a graphically rendered, three-dimensional space that represents a virtual world in which the players play the game. This virtual world is typically filled with objects, for example, characters, rooms, vehicles, items, and environments that are used to create the scene for the game. For example, a game set in a modern-day city would have a virtual world populated with objects like buildings, cars, people, etc. Similarly, a game set in medieval Europe might be populated with knights, serfs, castles, and horses. As the 3D spaces that these games inhabit have become larger and more complex, the task of filling them with a rich, varied, interesting, and detailed environment has become challenging, both computationally and in terms of the effort required to design and fill the worlds with a large variety of objects. In game development, this problem of filling virtual worlds with objects typically spans across a number of domains. For example, artists are responsible for creating the in-game objects from people and their clothes to vehicles, buildings, and interiors, and all the assorted other miscellaneous things that make up the world. Gameplay designers then must use these objects in the world to create some sort of desired gameplay. In other words, the artists do not create one final and complete static world. Instead, the gameplay designers might rearrange and reconfigure the objects in the world to tell a particular story, or to create an environment that will be interesting for a certain sort of game. Graphics rendering specialists must further ensure these 3D objects can be efficiently rendered with as much detail as possible, using available or targeted gaming hardware. In view of the foregoing, a need exists for an improved system for building and rendering in-game objects in an effort to overcome the aforementioned obstacles and deficiencies of conventional video game systems. Okay, so they simply explained why this system is needed in the game and why they even made it. It's pretty reasonable, so let's get into the explanation of what the patent is about. The disclosed systems are used to procedurally generate building interiors, which allows the generation of large number of different interiors from a relatively small set of interchangeable part objects. These parts would include things such as floor assets, ceiling assets, wall pieces, and numerous interior items for placement within the room. Variants of these items can be made available in several color palettes, which can be applied across the parts in a variety of ways. Arbitrary room shapes and sizes, including outdoor space, can be populated using the disclosed system. However, in some advantageous embodiments, this system is applied to rooms of similar shape and size, such as an apartment building where many rooms throughout the building would have essentially the same floor plan. Thus, the wall, ceiling, and floor details can all be mapped to the particular dimensions of those rooms, and the general placement of furniture and fixtures in the spaces would be similar. Accordingly, multiple apartment interiors can be easily created based on the same interior plan, but with different combinations of parts and colors. This would give the impression of a great deal of realistic variation from a relatively small set of data. The various parts in the rooms can be tagged with characteristic data, such as the property tags, disclosed in the previous embodiments. As with the previous embodiments, rules can be used to establish relationships between the various objects. This allows a selection of parts to be grouped together in an arbitrary way. For example, a bathroom group could comprise a group of tiled floors, tiled walls, baths, sinks, and mirrors, together with a light blue and white color palette. Variations on this group could be provided by changing the colors, or the particular versions of the tiles, sinks, bathtubs, etc. The bathroom classification allows the statement of the needed parts, along with the ability to select variations of each of the constituent parts. The metadata for the individual parts can also include different levels of wear and tear. For example, the parts can be labeled high-end, low-end, new, or worn. This allows the creation of a high-end bathroom by specifying a bathroom with new high-end tags, which will select the corresponding objects for inclusion in the room. Okay, so this definitely opens up a world of possibilities for the game's environments, extending far beyond just the aesthetic appeal. While this innovative technology doesn't directly imply that players will have the ability to customize their apartments, a feature that as of now hasn't been confirmed for the upcoming title, it does suggest a dynamic and ever-changing world within the game. It also doesn't necessarily imply that the game world will evolve in real time, or that players will witness live changes within these environments. Primarily, this system is a tool for game development, designed to streamline the creation process by automatically generating the details of various interiors. This approach significantly reduces the development time and resources required to populate the game's expansive world with a diverse array of detailed, unique spaces. However, this doesn't rule out the possibility of experiencing subtle, dynamic changes within the game's environments. While it's unrealistic to to expect drastic alterations like wall colors changing from one visit to the next, we can anticipate smaller, more natural variations that enhance the realism and immersion of the game world. Imagine entering a kitchen in the game and noticing different fruits in the bowl each time, or finding various combinations of dishes in the sink, reflecting the mundane realities of daily life. A little mess on a table or slight rearrangements in room decor can make each visit to a space feel fresh and lived in. Also, a good example is to imagine entering a building one day to find it in disarray, with clutter strewn about and dirt covering the floors, only to return later and discover it in a pristine state, as if someone had just tidied up. These subtle changes are more about adding depth and a sense of life to the game world, rather than transforming it entirely with each visit. Let's dive deeper into their explanation of how the system works. The game would generate an interior based on a combination of the usual graph traversal method, a selection of tags to ensure a consistent theme to the interior, and a particular random number seed, which provides a random selection through the graph path. The graph will provide the universe of possible rooms. In order to establish a particular interior, the designer or game script need only provide a block of parameters that stores a value to feed to each node in the ordered graph. These parameters select the path to recreate an interior. The parameters can range from being a simple on-off, for example, to control an optional rug appearing or not, to any value, for example, to control the number of tins appearing on a shelf, or the degree of dirtiness on a door. In addition, to the extent parameters are not specified for a particular node, a random path through the node. In this way, a large number of complex interiors can be created that are plausible because they follow the rules dictated by the graph, using a relatively small set of data, for example, the parameter block. The parameter block can store or transmit a complete description of these interiors. The parameter block structure can establish precisely which of the items in the description exist for a particular location, and it also provides any required additional data for items which need it. The mention of this technology makes me believe we will see a return of burglary missions similar to that of GTA San Andreas. But with procedural generation, these missions won't be the static, predictable challenges of the past. Each burglary could present a new puzzle, with different layouts, security measures, and valuables to steal. The success of 5M, where many servers allow players to engage in role-playing within custom interiors, like hospitals and police stations, has clearly demonstrated the community's appetite for rich, interactive environments. This trend has likely not gone unnoticed by Rockstar Games. Given this context, it's pretty obvious to expect that GTA 6 will feature a huge increase in the number of enterable interiors, especially in online modes. The necessity for procedural generation of interiors stems from a practical standpoint as well. In GTA 5, each interior was meticulously crafted, process that, while delivering high-quality environments, was incredibly time-consuming and limited the number of accessible interiors, such as restaurants. Procedural generation presents a solution to this challenge by automating the creation of diverse and unique spaces. This means that in places with similar structures, like apartment buildings, the interiors could vary greatly from one unit to another. Procedural algorithms could randomize elements within these spaces, ranging from the floor tiles to the bathroom fixtures, and even to the decorative aspects like posters and wall colors. This approach not only allows for a greater number of enterable interiors, but also ensures that each space feels distinct, adding depth and variety to the game's world. Also, the idea of using tags to build interiors in GTA 6 reminds me a lot of what they tried to do in Watch Dogs Legion with its characters. In that game, Ubisoft came up with a cool way to make every NPC really unique. They did this by mixing up a bunch of different labels or tags, like what job the character has, where they're from, how much money they make, and stuff like that. These tags weren't just for show. They actually changed how the characters looked, what they did during the day, the special skills they had, and even the cars they drove. It was like each character had their own little life going on in the game. This whole setup in Watch Dogs Legion was meant to make the game world feel alive and full of different kinds of people, each with their own stories. The idea was super ambitious and had a lot of potential to make the game really stand out. But here's the thing, even though the idea was great, the game itself felt like it was rushed out the door before it was really ready. A lot of the cool features they talked about didn't make it into the final game, or if they did, they weren't as polished as they could have been. Even though Rockstar's new system for generating interiors is pretty awesome, it doesn't mean that every single room and building in GTA 6 is going to be whipped up by a computer on the fly. I'm pretty sure Rockstar is going to use this tech smartly, focusing on the places in the game where it makes a lot of sense, like for those burglary missions where sneaking into houses is the name of the the game. It's also perfect for spots like restaurants or other public places where, let's be honest, one coffee shop kinda looks like the next. But when it comes to the really standout locations in the game, think massive, jaw-dropping mansions, famous art museums, or big deal spots like the Vice City Airport. Those are likely to get the VIP treatment. Rockstar knows these places are part of the big moments in the game, so they'll probably handcraft every detail to make sure they're just right for those high-stakes heists or crucial story missions. Now here's a wild thought. What if Rockstar went all out with this procedural generation thing and made it so that every single building you can walk into in GTA 6 is different in every player's game?
What?
Imagine seeing your friend's game and finding that the cozy diner on the corner in your version of the game is a sushi joint in theirs, all because of random furniture and interior layouts. That would be a game changer, making each player's experience truly unique. You could literally have millions of versions of GTA 6 out there, each with its own little quirks and secrets. It's a pretty out there idea, but in the world of video games, who knows what's possible, right?